So now we're doing something very exciting. We are going to turn to the 6 Continental Presentations. So this is where members from each respective diaspora organization comes and shares with us the key outcomes and themes from each individual day from this inaugural Global Diaspora Week. Just as a reminder, the order has been Asia, Africa, Europe, North America, Central America and the Caribbean, South America, and Oceania. Before we hear from Chris, who's going to talk about Asia Day first, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone involved with these sessions throughout the week. Everyone from moderators, minute takers, room managers, coordinators, and the DO members, of course, themselves. Thanks for all the passion, care, and commitment that you've shown. Just one example of this has been one of our volunteers finishing on Friday morning at 7 a.m. and then being available again at 7 a.m. Just a few hours later on Friday. An amazing efforts from all. So great, we're going to let Chris take it away first now then.
A very warm greetings to our distinguished guests and fellow delegates at the Global Diaspora Assembly. I am here to present to you what transpired on Sunday, 12 December 2021, on the Global Diaspora Regional Discussion on Asia. My name is Chris Santabrigida from the Filipino LGBT Europe Foundation. We do our diaspora work in Europe and in the Philippines. Asia Day started with an opening remarks from Peter Kwok, chairperson of the Global Diaspora Confederation. He highlighted that the Confederation is there to build together, listen from diaspora organizations, and to make the global diaspora better. Larissa from IOM pointed out that diaspora are the key actors and play a crucial role in the building inclusive societies. She also underlined the importance of efforts being done at so many levels, such as human rights and education. After the welcoming remarks, an icebreaker activity in the form of a survey was introduced. Based on the survey, diaspora organizations from or working in the region of Asia think that communication skills, charisma, and management experience are the top qualities that diaspora leaders should have. 37.5% of the participants from Asia region have more than 10 years working experience. Another 37.5% on the 3 to 5 years bracket, and 25% with 1 to 2 years working experience. In general, 66% work 5 hours per week, and others up to 20 hours per week. 36.4% agreed in the statement that diaspora organizations are well recognized. Another 36.4% said somewhat or maybe, and 27.3% said that they are not recognized for their work and contribution. Lastly, everyone from the diaspora organization from or working in the region of Asia believe that it will further support diaspora communities if diaspora organizations are more appreciated and recognized. During the breakout sessions, the diaspora organization discussed various sustainable development goals in relation to poverty, hunger, good health and well-being, access to clean water and sanitation, and the importance of partnership for the goals to be achieved. The discussion started by checking the diaspora organization on how the global pandemic impacted their diaspora organization's work. Most agreed to say that their work has been heavily affected by the pandemic. The travel restriction caused hardship to carry out their work, as several projects require physical connection with their communities. Another diaspora organization shifted its advocacy work to humanitarian work to help distribute food to help diaspora members who are not entitled to government support due to immigration status. In general, new plans and new projects have come out due to the pandemic. As for the question, do you think global diaspora organizations have adequate capabilities required to mitigate poverty? The diaspora organization in Asia think that they have adequate capacities. However, they highlighted that empowerment can only be done through networking and joining hands together. It was further stressed out that we do not need to have special skills or special resources. As I read, if there is a will, working together, there is always a way. We come to get some support, to get empowered, because if we are holding hands together around the world, we will get together. We will get empowered. These are just some of the words said by the diaspora organizations from Asia during the meeting on Sunday. As for the discussion in regards to achieving Sustainable Development Goal number 6 on clean water sanitation by 2030, diaspora organizations in Asia recognize the importance of mapping skills and establishing relationships with stakeholders. It highlighted the importance of establishing a level of trust. As one of the diaspora organizations said, we have the idea, we have the skills, but the local connection sometimes is missing. It depends on the will of the local government and communities. The diaspora organizations in Asia believes that we are all faced with the same challenges. We are all migrants, volunteer organizations, and often work on very limited resources. We might not have the resources that we need, but we can learn from others' ways to move forward. Therefore, GDC can be a platform of networking and provide trainings in the future. Although our goals might differ, we share the same vision: diaspora empowerment. These are the words echoed in the consultation session last Sunday. Thank you very much for your attention.
What high value insights. Thank you, Chris. Now I'm thrilled to welcome Paul from Zimbabwe Diaspora Nation Building Initiative, who is going to talk through the highlights of Africa Day. Welcome, Paul.
So sorry, John. I think Miriam may have something to say for the Asia Day as well before we move on to Paul.
Oh, brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, Miriam. Apologies about that. Please join us.
No worries. Thank you very much, John. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to our distinguished guests. My name is Miriam Dembo, and I am the Communications Director for the Cape Verdean Association in London, UK. The Asia Day high-level consultation session was an unprecedented opportunity to move away from the traditional model of diaspora engagement and foster a type of engagement that is networked, relational, and collaborative. By listening from the diaspora organizations, what can be done to make the global diaspora better? A fact that proved that diaspora are bridge catalyzers of change is the diversified target areas of action of the diaspora in Asia and the way they are playing a crucial role in building inclusive societies. So the target areas of the Asian diaspora that we could see at the consultation were education, gender equality, health, advocacy, migration support, human rights, renewable energy, youth empowerment, and community development. However, amidst the pandemic, what were some of the issues that were identified by diaspora organizations? So some of the issues were regarding employment. Some diaspora organizations mentioned that how the pandemic aggravated issues regarding employment, trafficking, and forced labor. The Indonesian diaspora stated how some diasporas were really impacted by the pandemic, with people moving back to their homeland and leaving work behind. Some diasporas in Malaysia found it hard to survive. On the other hand, the Philippines diaspora expressed a concern on how people lost their jobs and houses, and it called the attention to the alarming number of cases of migrants falling victims of human trafficking. Now, with the issues being identified, how did diaspora organizations synergize and strive for targeted efforts in support of their community? What are the solutions? Well, in Nepal, diaspora organizations expressed how they can contribute to the creation of employment opportunities for their countries of destination and origin by harnessing the skills they gain from the country that they are working in and contribute back. Hence, diaspora members with businesses have been empowering the youth. Regarding the Chinese diaspora, there are diaspora organizations in host countries that are assisting the Chinese community with returnees becoming a trend when they return. The Indonesian diaspora highlighted how many nationals often become victims of forced labor. So diaspora organizations stepped in to help, including working in collaboration with the government to help economic recovery and communication. As for the Philippine diasporas, it is fundamental to raise awareness of the support that is available to people and make sure they are informed and have resources. Awareness, campaigns, and education. Another final highlight was done regarding the need of transforming the brain drain experienced in home countries into brain gain, as the diaspora can play an important role for building bridges between the end users and innovative experts. And this could be seen at an infinite range of levels, from education, health, gender equality, climate change, among others. Now, once some of the problems and also the amazing actions by our diaspora organizations were considered, the question was, what could be the key learnings from this GDC consultation for diaspora organizations? Well, the key words that echoed in this whole week of consultations can be summarized in the form of SDG 17, Partnership for Goals. The fact is that real change starts with direct interpersonal contact when people from the diaspora and development organizations sit at a table and connect. Therefore, how do we see diaspora organizations collaborating best together? Well, we see that it is necessary to look at the local specificities, at the local and national challenges, and then share your vision with the global. So we encourage diaspora organizations to keep strengthening partnerships in the digital space. Expand your network, connect with local and national diaspora organizations. This will enable the sharing of know-how on how to establish effective partnerships with a wide range of stakeholders. Well, now, as much as GDC is there to provide coordinated plans, action plans for capacity building of the diasporas, it is the responsibility of diasporas to understand its own value and develop its own talents and capacities. Therefore, we encourage you to map your skills and use your strengths to push yourself further, grasp the key messages that comes from them and voice them. Now, my last point on this bit would be about innovation. The position of diasporas as powerful actors owing to their influence and financial resources has been strengthened by their actions over this pandemic. You have adapted, you have innovated, and you've created new ways of empowering your communities. So we're all agents transforming the international migration landscape, and we are key to the development of diaspora engagement strategies for our generation and generations to come. Now we get to our last point. So as the consultation is over, what role can GDC play as part of this diaspora empowerment strategy? Diaspora organizations were very clear in expressing that what we can do to benefit region countries will be more successful if managed effectively, and highlighted the need of a global structure that is focused on diaspora empowerment. GDC can play an active role in fostering new partnerships with diasporas to create innovative initiatives to empower diasporas, knowledge transfer, collaboration, and the recognition of the work, their vision, and their impact. Therefore, our recommendations would be create coordinated action plans for action building, policy advice, and research at multiple levels. Promote regular consultations based in a specific agenda, which will enable diaspora organizations to share their know-how on effective practices. Promote mentoring programs to allow diasporas to share this knowledge. Encourage the partnership of diasporas with key stakeholders by mapping them according to target sectors and geographic location. Another suggestion would be facilitate engagement between diaspora organizations and the International Organization for Migration and other diaspora engagement organizations by organizing regular and themed sessions based on relevant issues affecting diaspora sphere of action. Be a hub where diasporas can share their voice and add value to the work that diaspora organizations are doing by promoting their work and achievements in online platforms. My last 2 points would be create a resources documentation area on tools available to diasporas to foster diaspora engagement and the development of diaspora dedicated policy frameworks. And last but not least, probably one of the key points, promote sessions with keynote diaspora engagement experts regarding frameworks for diasporas and governments to work together. So I would like to congratulate GDC on this initiative as it proved that the diversity of the diaspora needs to be recognized as a strength instead of a problematic, because without purpose, diversity is useless, but with the vision, diversity becomes a force. This force can be efficient if all of us, as key stakeholders in development, invest in what we have in common, which is our vision of an empowered global diaspora that can have a seat at the table in all relevant policy fields and our national and international assets. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing, Miriam. Thank you so much. That was so interesting and useful. I particularly loved brain drain to brain gain. I'm definitely going to borrow that phrase. Wonderful hearing from you. Thank you. Apologies again for jumping ahead slightly. So I believe now we have the highlights of Africa Day. So I'm welcoming again Paul. Paul is from the Zimbabwe Diaspora Nation Building Initiative. And welcome to the stage, Paul.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, John, for welcoming me. And it is my pleasure, is the pleasure of the other presenters here to present what we focused on in our regional or in our continental discussion groups. And we, in the Africa Focus Group, we considered the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. But in particular, because of the constraints of time, we focused on a few that we shared our insights and experiences on. And one of those first ones was quality education. And what we, as we shared, we're cognizant that, you know, the African continent, like many other continents, has suffered from the brain drain, which has already been mentioned. But at the same time, there can be opportunities for what they call brain circulation, where the diaspora skills can be connected in partnerships with programs at home. And also we found there were ways of mutual, you know, benefit through, especially in Zimbabwe, through academic partnerships, where, let's say, academics who are now in the diaspora have actually formed the memorandum of understanding with higher education institutions in Zimbabwe, and that sort of ameliorates the problem of the brain drain. And then also that the one problem which has actually come up is the problem of the, you know, the pandemic and how it has adversely impacted on quality education. And creative ways have had to be evolved of how to address some of these challenges. And there have been conferences, joint conferences with some diasporas and home institutions to address these challenges. And the next issue that we focused on in the Africa Focus Group was on gender equality. And we realized that, the issue of gender equality is a very keenly contested concept in many countries. And the observation was that there are some countries where it's much more pronounced than others, whereas other countries are very much on the improve with parity in terms of gender. But there are some where the girl child is seriously left behind. And there was a wonder to see how can, global, kind of networks move into that space of lobbying for those situations where, the girl children are seriously left behind. And the other issue, which is also very current actually in the literature, in the discussions, is the issue of climate change and climate action. And, there is a sense in which, the challenge of climate change really requires innovative solutions where people actually think as it were outside the box and try to see what kind of synergies can be established across continents, across diaspora organizations. And in that respect, sometimes for these diaspora organizations to deliver, there is also a sense in which there is need to give them capacity to be able to deliver. Yes, it is a truism that diaspora organizations can in the long term have enough capacity to be able to deliver on their own, but in the first instances, just one would like to reflect in the same way like the Global Diaspora Confederation, as it is starting, just like all babies who are starting, they start with uneven steps and they need the assistance of those who have already been out there to help them. So similarly also that there is very much need for capacity building so that transnational diaspora organizations can be able to deliver even in the area of climate change and climate action. And then looking at the macro picture in terms of partnership, the salient observation we find is that partnership is really great because what it does, it maximizes and amplifies the local input and takes it to a higher level. I think one contributor has already talked about the issue of taking these issues to a higher level in terms of scaling up. And that scaling up requires collaboration with those actors who have already been out there in that space. And those actors, among others, include the International Organization of Migration. And it is quite a privilege that the Deputy Director is here with us, that she may also be able to hear firsthand from the experiences of people who are on the ground. I'm not saying she herself has not been on the ground, but she also has been on the ground for many years. So there will be need, for these transnational NGOs as well. I'm reminded in Africa, we've got Afford, for instance, which is trying to also coordinate the impact of diaspora organizations beyond single countries. And that partnership should necessarily be built on mutual respect and collaborative working, acknowledging that it's not like there's been a tabula rasa, but people have already been at work in many respects. So that collaboration of necessity need to bear in mind that there are already actors who are already there. We have got a lot to contribute in terms of working together. And then we also considered, how the participants felt in terms of participating on this Global Africa Day. And the group felt it was a good opportunity to engage in the very formative stages of the Global Diaspora Confederation. So there is a sense in which people can bring their experience to sort of really facilitate the faster development and the faster impact that GDC can have, because it's not like a new organization which is starting from nowhere, but it's an organization that is building on already existing and thriving diaspora organizations. Nonetheless, there is the issue of representativeness, which also arises to say, yes, if we say we are, GDC is global, the next question is how representative are the structures of, of necessity. Sometimes there are people who are there to begin the initiative, which is really commendable. But then there is also a sense in which people need to appreciate that there are already other actors who can really add speed and expedite the whole process of engagement, of collaboration, and of delivery on the ground. So in that sense, there is a lot really that we can benefit from coalescing the global diaspora voice and use that voice to lobby for the interests of the global diaspora in its multiple, in its multi-faceted expressions. And just tying in with the Asia, the Asia group's finding, in terms of what are the 3 top qualities of diaspora leaders, or those that should have communication skills, came first as well in the Africa Focus Group. And then also another close second was management experience and passion. So it's very good that there is passion, because passion is like the engine, it's like the driver, but also that vision that needs to be communicated, needs to be clearly communicated so that people can really rally around those objects which are common to us all. And in terms of the participants who were in the forum, the majority, 44% had been in the sector for a few years, but this is not in any way representative of the whole diaspora landscape, but just reflective of the sample that participated in this study. And it can be seen that one of the presenters actually, who is with IOM in Egypt, had been in the sector for over 20 years. And some actors, I think, have been in this sector for a very long time, and they bring in invaluable experience to the table. And then in terms of how much, there was discussion in terms of how many hours really should people be putting to diaspora work. And the general consensus was around 6 to 10 hours, but there was also an appreciation that this really depends on the nature of that diaspora organization. Some which are maybe full-time, you would find that they would put in more than 20 hours, but generally speaking, there was an encouragement to have a sense of balance, so that you are not overly, the diaspora work does not take over your whole life, particularly where people are part-time, are doing, maybe many administrations will be doing their diaspora work part-time. So there is a sense in which balance would really help. And then the question, coming to the question as to whether diaspora organizations are recognized. 22% felt yes, they are recognized, but it's quite disquieting that 33% felt no, they are not recognized, and that's 44.4% felt somewhat recognition, they are somewhat recognized. I think the national governments and the global, global agencies sometimes might miss that point of really finding ways of supporting and acknowledging the work that the diaspora organizations do, because sometimes they really go into that space where no one else is acting in, and they bring in quite substantive change, whether it would be through hometown associations, whether it might be through school alumni associations and other such kind of networks. But sometimes because of the political nature of some of, let's say, diaspora work, sometimes there is a sense in which political identification might be a constraint, but there is a sense in which people just need to rise beyond parties to embrace each other as nationals and compatriots, and then say, how can we work together even across party lines? Yes, there was a consideration to say, would it help communities if diaspora organizations are more appreciated and organized and recognized? Just like in the Asia report, people felt that really this would really help. So I think embracing these diaspora organizations and the initiatives, they might come crude as they are, but they can be refined as people engage and say, how best can we get a win-win situation which really helps everybody who is involved. Some key takeaways that we took from these consultations, we found that the Global Diaspora, GDC as a new actor raises a lot of potential. There is a great potential because, as I said, GDC is building on already existing structures, and that should really give it a lot of impetus. And there is much work also that people can do across the, the national boundaries, and then what are the ways in which diaspora organizations best collaborate together? There was mention earlier on of the need for diaspora mapping. It's good to find out what are the diaspora groups which are there out there in the different countries, what are they doing, and how can they be networked together so that we are able to bring a more impactful kind of delivery system. And the other thing would also be through establishing representative structures. If we say the African continent, can we possibly look at dividing Africa into substantive regions, maybe West and North Africa, Southern Africa, East Africa, and that kind of thing, and then getting representatives to be working through and representing all those different areas. And one other point which I omitted from the last slide was about transparency. There will be a lot of support which people will give to GDC if it is seen to be transparent in its operations. Transparency and accountability help raise the profile of organizations. So indeed, the GDC is a potentially great idea that can be used as an effective conduit of global diaspora coalescence. And sometimes it might be useful to have information which people can have, which is readily available, which should really speak to the objectives, which can easily be shared with the wider diaspora. And as I said, also there is need to establish accountable and transparent global structures, and also allow continental decision-making, which can also contribute to the global kind of decision-making processes. So it is my pleasure. I thank you very much for listening. It was quite a privilege for me and others who were there to be together and also share ideas on how we can really be the wheels which will make this organization deliver on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paul. I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone when I say how I love how education and partnership working was at the heart of your approach, and also your encouragement for us all to think outside the box. Yes. Now we have Mandy from Beyond Ianola, who is going to talk to us about Europe Day. Hi, Mandy.
Hello, everyone. Lovely, lovely to be here. There are a few of us on today. In addition to myself, the co-founder of Beyond Dianola and
Marlon.
And we worked with Penelope from UK FCP. So I'm not sure if she's here.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Mandy.
Oh, wonderful, Penelope. So just give you a second to introduce yourself.
So hi everyone, and thanks so much for inviting UK FCP at this event. So I'm the Vice President of UK Federation of Chinese Professionals. We are based in the UK, and I participated in the Europe Continental Day.
Fantastic. Can we get the next slide, please? So the initial icebreaker was really interesting because it gave us an opportunity to reflect. And I don't know about you, but reflecting isn't easy to do when you've got a full-time job and you're trying to help the diaspora develop. We found that the top qualities for persons engaged with diaspora organizations was empathy was one of the main ones, that persons really felt the need to support others within the diaspora. And that was coupled with, oh, my screen's got a little skew with there. My screen's got a bit fuzzy, so I'm just going to carry on. It's coupled with influencing as well, and there's a match there with management. In terms of experience, number of years of experience, we were really impressed to see that it was more of a 50-50 split. And that gave us hope to see that though there were persons with quite a vast amount of experience, of years of experience working within the diaspora, there were persons who have just come in, 1 or 2 years experience. That tells us that not only are we well prepared for the future, but we have a strong advocacy working within the different diaspora groups. The amount of time spent working on it was also very interesting. Yes, as was said before, that there was an average of 6 to 10 hours, but there were quite a few persons who spent a considerable part of their week working towards promoting their areas of interest within the diaspora. And we're going to pass over to Penelope for the next one.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we talked about some of the sustainable development goals, and we split into 3 groups, and we will now present a summary of what we discussed. Next slide, please. And I'm going to hand over to Beyond Dianola.
Thank you. So the impact of the pandemic was one that we discussed at length. The obvious one of financial constraints, because we just couldn't go out there and do as much as we would have liked to, came up time and time again. But we realized that though that there were some hindrances about going out and connecting and fundraising face to face, online activities increased exponentially, and I'm sure along with the rest of the world, we were all on Zoom and different platforms trying to make those connections and trying to ensure that whatever activities we did brought out the best in our community. Unfortunately, there was a bit of negativity spreading because of the pandemic in some of the organizations that were there. Things like hate speech because of lack of information about how the pandemic spread. But what it really brought to the fore is the need to have diaspora organizations that can help support individuals come through this. Some of the projects had to be paused, but again, online work rose exponentially. And I'll carry on in the next slide to tell you a bit more about that. We thought about how poverty was really affected by the pandemic, with persons not being able to go out to work. And the lack of funding and the lack of access to routes for funding became very apparent. And we think that, and that will be discussed a little later by Penelope, we think that this actually is something that all organizations need to think about, a constructive way to get persons working where finance isn't the main aim, where we can use our collective skills to help develop the diaspora. Having said that, small groups do find it difficult because of our size. The groups find it difficult to be able to get the amount of monies needed to help support the diaspora. So moving on to the next slide. We recognize that though we are small, the GDC can support us in these ways to be able to focus on the needs of persons who are a minority group, to be able to help us to work more quickly where we need to. And again, being small, we were able to contact the persons within the diaspora more readily. And also we have found ways to connect with our partners regionally. And I did pop into the chat that is what we do. We celebrate those persons within the diaspora who are doing things. And having met persons like Penelope and a few others within that group, I think collaboration is absolutely key. So handing over to Penelope.
Thank you. So we talked about education and the skills gap, and we said how it really depends on location. Some countries have more opportunities than others. And we also said that quality of education and the labor market of each country are some factors that affect the skills gap. Volunteering is one of the ways to close this gap. And Diaspora Organization can provide things like language lessons and signpost people to resources in order to help them develop their skills. We also talked about the role of technology. We said how it can be quite difficult for some people to use the internet or learning platforms and even have access to data or inexpensive data as well as hardware like laptops. There are also a lot of fraudulent activities going on the internet, and some people may fall victims of it. However, there are positive ways of using technology as well, such as YouTube and other social media platforms. People can have accounts there, and they can represent their countries or heritage countries, talk about them, give tips to people who would like to migrate to a country, and technology can also promote entrepreneurship. So what DOs can do is signpost people to the correct resources. It's like teaching them almost how to use reliable platforms. And of course, it's about raising awareness. Next slide, please. We also talked about gender equality, and we said how we can look at projects that can make a real difference in this area. So DOs can bring together, GDC can bring together female professionals with different backgrounds from different expertise and connect them. Now, how can we bridge educational and language barriers? Some of the ways can be things like networking, mentoring, and signposting people to resources and training providers. Next slide, please. And I'm going to hand over to Beyond Ianola.
The key themes here were building partnerships and trust with homeland governments, and that resonated throughout the three areas here. The organizations, some of the, apologies. The organizations, sorry, weren't very involved in energy, clean energy. However, they felt they saw the merit in having discourse and engagement with the private sector in particular as a way to move forward. The need to diversify sustainable sources of energy and having financial resources as well is something that they recognize. And also working with communities to find practical ways to deal with climate change and to mitigate against it. Handing over to Penelope.
Please. So how can Diaspora Organization collaborate best together? Firstly, by becoming members of GDC. Then it's also about networking, discussing best practice, exchanging staff or volunteers to develop their expertise, attending and organizing events and workshops outside of their groups and interests, and of course, working together on different projects and sharing funds. Next slide, please. And I'm going to hand over to Beyond Ianola.
Thank you. There was quite a lot of talk within the session about what can be done next, because it's all good and well to come together and have this type of conference, but I think the real power lies in how we move forward. And from that, I'm going to leave you to read this slide, but from that came the need for the GDC to be almost the arm that gets us organized, to formally get us to recognize that we are great at what we do and to be able to amplify us on a wider stage. And the example of maybe the G7 summit being something that we could benefit from being amplified in. I don't know how many connections, how many fingers in how many pies, but I'm sure ION and GDC can work something out for us. Also, the need for funding to be, or strategies towards developing funding. That would be something that would be really beneficial. And creating a hub. I love the idea of us coming together and sharing expertise. Again, in the discussions, there were so many things that came up that made us realize that we were all, not all, but we were doing things and we were replicating things. Whereas if we had a central place for resources to be housed, we can dip into that pool as and when needed, support each other and help us bring the diaspora to a place where we are promoting development for our homeland countries and for the countries where we currently reside. The other thing that really stood out for us during that discussion is the need for this to be formalized. And I know Peter mentioned earlier that this is one of the aims for next year for diaspora organizations to become members of the GDC. And I can say that we are really excited about it and looking forward for greater connections. Thank you. Moving on to Penelope.
So finally, we asked the representatives to tell us what superpower they would like to have, and we grouped together their answers, and you can see them on your screen. I loved how the vast majority wishes to have superpowers, which would have a positive impact on others. So that's it from us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fantastic. A huge thank you to all three of you, Mandy, Marlon, and Penelope. So much passion and so many great solutions on show. Love it. Now we are moving through to North America, Central America, and the Caribbean days. We have Keanu from NAFA.
Thank you, John. Hi, everyone. My name is Keanu, and I am a volunteer project analyst with NAFA, which is short for the National Federation of Filipino American Associations, based in the United States. So if you can go to the next slide. This past Wednesday, the GDC and other nonprofit organizations from North America, Central America, and the Caribbean gathered to discuss concerns and ongoing actions regarding poverty mitigation, quality education, economic growth, and sustainability. Throughout the consultation, I was happy to speak with colleagues that worked on the Haitian diaspora and learning more about their different approaches to organizational capacity and resource building strategies. Despite our differences, it was very clear that we all face similar obstacles in strengthening our organizations. And if our conversations this past week are any indication of the future of this initiative, we believe there's a lot of potential to create invaluable impact for each other. So if you go to the next slide, it's not uncommon for organizations to operate in niches because of many limitations, ranging from financial to time to human capital constraints. So we believe this is an opportunity for an organization such as the GDC to provide additional assistance in creating a bottom-up transnational framework to facilitate exchange of knowledge and expertise. For example, the organization I work with focuses on civic engagement and has a long history of working alongside the Filipino American community on issues ranging from voter engagements, immigration, and more recently, combating Asian hate sentiment growing in the United States as a result of the pandemic. However, due to limited resources, there may be gaps in our programming, which makes it difficult to address the widespread of issues that affect Filipinos across the world. And we hope that through this global network, we can create partnerships with other diaspora organizations to amplify our ability to address issues that we normally would not be able to resolve. But on top of covering gaps in individual programming, we also see this as an opportunity to strengthen our community. By creating transnational partnerships, we are excited to see an increase in exchange of knowledge, expertise, and resources. The global infrastructure that we are all building together with the GDC provides an interesting opportunity to both cover our weaknesses while expanding on our strengths together. If you go to the next slide. Moving forward, we are hopeful that the GDC fosters a bottom-up approach to building the community to focus on the vastly different needs in this platform. The past conversations this week have been very interesting, and we are hoping to not only continue being involved in inter-diaspora community conversations, but to also be involved in intra-diaspora conversations as well. Through the GDC, we hope to see infrastructure created to help develop the inter and intra-diaspora community. And in time, we also hope that the GDC provides development roadmaps and methodologies for measuring impact, not only to provide transparency and direction, but also provide tangible opportunities for the global diaspora to provide input, create a conversational approach, and ensure we all are apprised of the initiative's impact on the global diaspora. We're looking forward to seeing more from this initiative and hope to work with and support everyone in this group. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Keanu. You had the lofty challenge of representing 2 separate days, and you did it so seamlessly. Bravo to you. Representing South America, we have Walter from the Consulado Civico Foundation. Hi there, Walter.
Hi, how are you doing? Honored to be here. Thank you for having us. And I'm here on behalf of our foundation. This is a small but growing team, mainly Venezuelans and also Americans in Chile. I'm basically here because I've been in all 4 stages of human mobility. I was first a Chilean refugee that grew up in Venezuela, then a Venezuelan migrant that got married in Ecuador, and next, I will say an Ecuadorian expat that had children in Mexico. So my son, who is in that picture, he's entitled to all 4 nationalities. And now I am a returnee into my country of origin in Chile, trying to, of course, continue to what been my life. For South America, we focus on this 2 groups of 5 and 4 sustainable development goals, which will work in more detail a bit later. Let's start by breaking the ice with the results that we have from that initial consultation. And we really liked that we all agree that empathetic, being able to put in someone else's shoes was really key for us leaders of the diaspora, as well as being passionate about what we're doing, because most of those come from our lives. This third option was not agreed, mainly communication, but as you will see later, time is also an issue. Not only the time and the experience that we have supporting diaspora, all across from being, let's say, relatively new to this, to most of us that will say that are more senior and working with diaspora communities. But the time that we spend on those organizations varies from just being a volunteer and dedicated a few hours per week. So some of us, this is a full-time or at least a part-time job for our communities. And we agreed mainly that only a fraction of diaspora organizations' contributions are properly recognized. Half of us says no, and 30% says just a little bit. And for sure, we completely agree that we could have more recognition on our efforts to help not only our communities of origin, but also the hosting communities. And here, well, nobody say that they needed more time, but they do want to have a superpower to have more time or to create more superpowers. So that's also related to time. That really creates a very interesting, and friendlier ambience for us to continue working. So we also not only share the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, but also we're looking at the 23 Global Compact for Migration objectives. Also, our organization is one of the organizations participating in the Social Society Review for the Global Compact for Migration. And we took the liberty of adding a little bit of both on the slide. So basically, the impact of the global pandemic in our organization, specifically in Chile, the closing of the borders had a great impact. And we also have to shut down and replan our activities, go virtual with many activities that we have planned to be in person, but also that allows to increase flexibility in some options. And we also realize how dependent we are now on technology. When technology fails, when the connection is not proper, like we sometimes see, then the entire activity is at risk. And from Europe, we were received, and there's a Venezuela organization work in Europe that tells that the pandemic significantly affected the influx of migrant persons into Europe in general. In Chile, that closing of borders was closely related to the irregular entry to the country. So it didn't actually affected the influx of persons. It just affected the way they're entering and how they are in the country, not being in a regular position, not having their documentation in order. And of course, this is completely related to the situation of poverty, and it creates more obstacle to bring them out of poverty. In terms of how to mitigate that poverty, we see entrepreneurship as the main tool for us to go there. But even if you are not regular in a country, even if you don't have documents, you can go and buy something and then sell it. And that's entrepreneurship, as simple as that. And specifically, our organization are also empowering single mothers. This is one of our key actions, to work somehow remotely and trying to help other migrants. For instance, there is a single mom in Santiago who just takes envelopes by the mail and goes stamp the documents at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is needed, and there's only one office to stamp all requests from all across Chile. So she is actually making a living by just receiving the email, going to the office, standing in line, and have a bunch of documents stamped, and helping a lot of people by doing that. In terms of now achieving clean water and sanitation, we saw projects of diaspora cross-funding across the Venezuelan diaspora to fund water and sanitation projects in Venezuela, as well as solar-powered hypochlorite producing plants that are being produced in Venezuela, used in Venezuela, and also they're starting to export from Venezuela. We also mentioned an interesting project here in Chile that tried to reduce the cost of installing water in rural communities by using long pipes hauled by helicopters. I was part of that project like 8 years ago. It was very interesting. And then those projects migrated also. Here we see migrant communities relocating to rural areas because it's significantly cheaper to live there. And there are some programs that will promote that, but also that creates other challenges. But Chile has a specific program to fund rural water projects for rural communities. That's the name. And the same community has to organize in order to get this funding. So it's done by them and managed by them. Now moving forward to how innovation and solutions for clean energy, we really want to highlight the knowledge transfer from migrants and the necessity to scale up some other projects, like there was one mentioned about portable lights, but specifically the Dominican diaspora in our regions has the knowledge of having a lot of energy storage at home. This is a very energy deficient country, so almost everybody who can have a stock of batteries at home, and and they know how to manage that. So they're now here in Chile tapping into the governmental policies to develop clean energies and to even including the recycling from industrial solar panels into residential solar panels. So this knowledge from the diaspora has been will be much more important in the future. Like in general, combining the opportunities and the policies of one country with some organizations that can contribute to that will create a very interesting synergy. as well as how those experts are now in different countries can now virtually contribute to other communities. In terms of the energy production and the growing of our population, we really want to mitigate, this is part of our organization that we're trying to do, to mitigate that idea of having more at your hosting country. It is a sign of being stable. It is something that it creates a lot of pressure into the consumption patterns, because we see people like buying less sustainable clothing because they want to have more clothing, because they feel that need in the hosting community. They also specifically, we're also connected now and using much more technology, but this is impacting the way we consume energy. That's a way that we need to move and address. And optimize also well the energy production and consumption patterns to use more solar energy related to what we just said about the panels. And now it was presented a very interesting solution about creating microgrids, not just out of the grid communities, but microgrids that can balance the charges and also increase the feeling of working together and in integration in a community. In terms of the activities to fight climate change, the use of education as the starting point is absolutely key, and the diaspora organizations to seek globally while acting locally. It completely different. It makes a difference when you teach a child that whatever you're doing in this country, it will also impact your country of origin. And in Mexico, there was a specific campaign that was saying, Mexico City, you need to turn on the lights so Villahermosa doesn't flood. And that also created a lot of impact to say, yes, we are all in one planet. The other key highlight that we want to address is how now diaspora communities that have increased their wealth in their hosting countries are now driven impact investment into the countries of origin. And this is also a way to, that's investment that can easily and much be directed towards a more sustainable development, as well as the information sharing for communities to work together and improving the advocating for climate change. So the recommendations for the Global Diaspora Confederations, we truly believe that becoming part of the society review for this organization in all the areas which is fighting for the Global Compact for Migration, it will be helpful for the organization and for the review. We also, in this context, we believe that this organization, a trusted organization that can act as a moderator in, like now, in the interaction of very different and diverse diaspora organizations, will be of value for us, because we'll be able to have more productive conversation, as well as to facilitate the engagement between organizations and ensure that the right diaspora organizations get linked to the right initiatives and actors. And specifically to bridge the gap between diaspora organizations and international organizations and promote the valuable information and discussion as well. Some of our organizations can relate, and let's say we have the resources and the time to engage with IOM, with ACNUR and other organizations, but many of our diaspora organizations can't. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Walter. I was particularly impressed by your initiatives to achieve clean water and sanitation for everyone, and bonus points for having your lovely son in that first photo too. Before I introduce our last speaker, please know I've been giving you all a standing ovation in my mind when you finished all of your presentations. So incredibly inspiring. And to represent Oceania, last but definitely not least, we have Ephraim from the Multicultural Professional Bridge.
Thank you very much, John. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, great. I'll take advantage of the fact that I'm coming last, because a lot of people have already said some of the things. I don't have to repeat stuff. And same profile with this chart in our icebreaker session. I like the way Walter put it in terms of the aspect of empathy. If you're not in the shoes of people that are in it, it's quite difficult. So it's critical even for GDC. And I'm seeing that already with Peter and his team. Communication skill, however beautiful your program's ideas, unless it's communicated, you agree with me that it may get lost. And of course, passion. Next slide, please. Same profile like others here, so I don't want to spend too much time here. The story is that quite a diverse set of people are getting involved in diasporic work, which is great. Next slide. This is a bit of a concern because I can say this from lived experience. Many times, especially during the COVID, quite a number of diaspora organizations shut down because they were not sustainable. And even before then, people have work to do. And you agree with me that diasporans actually migrate to work and to feed mouths back home and in country. So sometimes it's almost two things working against each other. We need to support our people, but at the same time, diaspora people naturally are workers. They want to work and earn money. So this has been a challenge. How do we sustain diasporic organization? I think this is worth a session of its own because it's critical to sustainability. But that's the story here right now. A lot of time is spent, but people are suffering, people are dropping off, diasporic organizations are shutting down. Next slide. I want to sort of focus on this a bit. I'm not sure whether it's just my side or the full story. You know, at the end of the day, diaspora people, when they leave their homes, they want a meaningful life. And I use this chart, or we use this chart that everyone can relate to when we're looking at this in the Oceania consultation. You know, however people migrate, whether due to war or hunger, those basic needs are largely met, at least I can say for Australia. But we all know that, you know, in no distant time, people want to have meaningful life. Whether you have an engineer who came in as a refugee, after 2 years, they want to be engineers. So there's a lot of frustration in that aspect of moving up. That sense of belonging, it becomes an issue quickly after a while. You know, I can also speak from experience. When you migrate initially, all the excitement of the standard of living, the organization, the fact that most places, at least I can still say for where I live, basic needs are largely met due to the superb welfare system. I must give it to the country. They are trying in that regards. But after a while, people start suffering despite all the basic needs being met. So I really think this is one area that GDC can look at. We'll come to that slide later, but just painting a picture here that we should be talking of meaningful life rather than just life. And we should be talking about sustainable experience rather than just living. You know, because of the space I work in, I wrote an article one time that says, how long will diasporas keep flushing their hard-earned certificates in the toilet? You know, I remember when I earned my master's degree, I literally closed the street of my country because it was a big deal. But because of migration, that paper became like paper, you know. And these are just common situations that we need to keep working about: decent work, valuing people. And I think GDC can bring fresh air in that area. So that's the essence of this slide, just to let us direct our mind to more of sustainable living. Let people be worth what they are worth. Let people be valued for what they are valued for, and let people live life to the fullest. Let's go to the next slide, please. I just painted this picture with Australia just to give you a flair in terms of the diversity, and some of these statistics. I know that IOM has done a good job as well. I use them in my work as well. And I think GDC, from what we've seen, even during the consultation, GDC is beginning to do some good work with numbers. Numbers don't lie. So we need statistics to support our initiatives. So in Australia right now, of course, those that know the history of Australia, you know that it's strongly British. The Chinese have made inroads. There's been a bit of change over time. People from Indian background, I must say here, and this is where diaspora, we should begin to work in that space. When I see my brother India doing well, even though I'm from Africa, we should break that barrier and work together. So for us right now, India is becoming a power broker because of numbers. However, I mean, during our consultation, we keep highlighting, we know that GDC is meant to be non-governmental, non-political, but we all know that migration becomes hot issue when it is political. Politicians will attend diasporic meetings when they know they can get votes. That's just the truth. I can tell you that. I know that is not politically correct to say that, but that's the reality. So the more we can begin to empower the core to influence the seat of power for the sake of the wider group, I think that will be the step change. So this chart talks about racism is not lost, it's still there. I know we've not mentioned it today. Just that because we are minority, look at that chart right now, that first 10 numbers in terms of migration, the country to an extent, and I don't blame any country, every country wants to protect their migration policy. Migration is not done just to help people. It's a policy, it's design. So the more we can influence at that core, I think the better. I don't know how GDC will influence in that area, but I see GDC, IOM becoming the United Nations of migration. So if UN will not talk about us, let IOM and GDC talk about us. So this chart is just to show that this is where we are now. We're still facing issues. Somebody already mentioned COVID situation. It is absolutely remarkable what tension can cause. It can bring up those hate speech, those otherness. You are not like us, you're not part of us. So we need to keep working at that. Next slide, please. Just trying to watch time here. So in terms of some of the key takeaways during our consultation, we felt we need to build more, sorry if I'm a bit biased toward professionalism, because that is my space, even though we work across the board as well. We must step beyond just language and go to communication. It's one thing to speak English, it's another thing to influence. So I don't know, maybe GDC can do something around that education area, especially at the front end, not when we're already on ground. You know, extend the front end, get people prepared, set expectation, get them ready. I use one word very often these days, help them to be ready. Sorry. Yeah. help them to be ready to show up when the occasion demands. I think we need to do that. I'm tired of diasporas being treated secondary. We need to keep showing up at occasions. So I think communication will help that a lot. Local work experience is a big barrier. Networks, I keep telling, we saw this during our consultation as well. It was unanimous that we need to help to build networks across diasporic organizations. Qualification is almost nothing we can do about that. Sometimes when you come across in a country, you have to change. You have to do few things to get your skills recognized, but we cannot afford to drop the baton. So people need support. People need that extra support to let them know that they are not alone. One key thing keep coming up today, and I hope we can continue with that. We are not alone. Let me go to the next slide for time's sake. COVID, I don't want to repeat what others have said. Australia had the same situation. In the skills space, though, it opens some opportunities as well. Some skilled immigrants were doing some remarkable, innovative stuff. It's also an opportunity to sort of shift some work offshore because we think that business will not go back as usual again. We see now that Omicron is coming. We don't know what's coming next. So I think the mindset is shifting to innovation, new ways of working. And we saw that in terms of an advantage. But the typical vaccine challenges, anti-vax, and we saw a few diasporic communities were part of that movement. And I don't want to open up the anti-vax politics here. We know how that could be charged, but it became a divide even among between diaspora and mainstream. It's not an easy solution that I have, easy situation I have solution for, but vaccine challenges were there. And policies are now being implemented, again, to chart the way forward for migration. And I hope IOM and GDC are involved at the top level to help preserve the quality of life for diasporans or diasporics. Next slide, please. So just some of the aspects where GDC could also help here. Is that the last slide? Can you go to the next slide? Let me just see. Yeah, let me just go to this for time's sake. We believe that, for me, GDC brings, for us during the consultation, GDC brought freshness, very fresh thinking. I see it as a game changer. We have a few diasporic organizations around global diaspora. Each country have their diaspora. So there's just so many, but sometimes it's just so disjointed. So I think GDC has the opportunity here to do something different. And I think this is starting on a good foot, which is bringing people together, helping people to work across those divides, and helping to strengthen the core of diaspora. I think GDC can help us there, helping to balance narrative, micro and macro level. I'll unpack that a bit, because we hear that diaspora bring value to countries, but I can tell you sometimes that gets lost in all the anti-migration story. So I think GDC can help at that level, again, working with power brokers like IOM, just to send counter-true messages in the airwave, either through social media, whatever, just send the good stories, things that diasporas are doing. And I think that helps a lot to influence the hearts of people. And just that 4-letter word, which has shown through today, and just hearing Peter regularly recently, I feel that, and that is care. Diasporans many times need care. It doesn't matter whether at different levels, they just want someone to care. because out there, sometimes they don't get it. On the street, sometimes they are being distanced. Sometimes that otherness, they are the other. It happens to me, I don't know for others, when I walk on the street, I just naturally must say hello to someone like me. And to tell you that this is natural, likes attract likes. But when you are a minority, who is the likes that will attract you? So I think GDC, IOM can cause a lot of care for people here. I'll just leave it at this stage because there's quite a lot to unpack. Once again, I feel energized. It's almost midnight here. It's past my sleep time, but I think sleep is secondary now because of what is exciting here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ephraim, and good night when it comes. Wow, I don't know about you, but I've been deeply impressed with the quality of information we've received. I could listen to these presenters all day, but we haven't got all day. So we just want to thank them for putting together these amazing presentations at such short notice. I have been advised that we would take a minute or two to take another group photo. Is that all right, Christina? So we want to make sure we've captured all the pages. We've got 6 pages now. So yes, please sign again, and then we'll take a group photo. And then would you let me know when it's all done, please?
Okay.
Thank
so
you.
Should we say something or okay? First one done. Okay. Second one done. Okay. Another 2. Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we're nearly there, but before we move on to the next stage, I would want to give a shout out to those represented here. So we give a shout out to the Chinese, French, and Spanish interpreters who are helping with this event. We have delegates from Zimbabwe, Watford, UK, Liberia, Italy, New York, Philippines, India, Germany, Kosovo, Tunisia, Venezuela, Ireland. We thank you all for coming, and we recognize you. We see you. Thank you.